the governor of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, vetoed a bill that targeted trans student athletes. The bill is called Bill 377, which would have prevented trans students from competing in sports that do not align with the biological sex assigned at birth. But following the veto, Governor Evers says, I believe this bill fails to comport with our Wisconsin value. We expect our kids to treat each other with kindness, with respect, with empathy, and compassion. And we should be able to expect adults to lead by example. He's made it very clear, the governor, that he intends to veto any bill that attempts to make LGBTQ people feel uncomfortable or unsafe. Now, this is an interesting bill. And this is a tough bill. I agree that we should absolutely veto any legislation that does harm to LGBTQ populations, that treats them as second-class citizens, that undermines their ability to grow and to prosper and to have joy. I still don't understand the sports argument. I need somebody to help me understand the sports argument. I am open to being persuaded. But when I think about trans athletes playing in sports that don't correspond to their biological or birth sex or identity, I don't know exactly how we can create a context that's fair for everybody. Again, I don't have an answer. What I know for sure is we need to affirm our trans family as full human beings. We need to affirm their gender identity. So not just affirm their humanity, but affirm their gender identity. I'm saying we got to do both of those things. At the same time, we divide sports at a very early age by biology, right? We make it very clear, whether it's track, whether it's basketball, whatever, that after like middle school or certainly after elementary school, we start dividing teams up, boys and girls, because there's a very clear body of evidence, both scientific and anecdotal, that, you know, the differences between boys and girls are sufficient. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, that if you didn't divide boys and girls up by track, girls wouldn't win the track meets. They wouldn't be able to compete because of our biological differences. Doesn't mean girls are inferior, doesn't mean men are superior or boys are superior. It just means that our bodies are different. And so for the trans girl, I affirm her girlness. I affirm her girlhood. I don't want to take anything away from that. I just don't know what to do when the biological identity or the biological realities are still kicking in. Sometimes there are hormone blockers and other things that stop those things from happening at the same rate and the same speed. Sometimes there are things that happen early on that can stop the disparity from growing, but oftentimes you have a biological difference. And so when we see the swim situation at University of Pennsylvania, when we see certain other sports, track, volleyball, etc., there is a difference that I don't know what to do with. Now, a lot of the times for the last decade or two, this has been a solution in search of a problem. There's one or two trans athletes that want to play these sports, and the state acts like it's a disaster and a crisis, and the Republicans are running around saying, oh my God, we got to ban it because the trans people are trying to steal the sports from our girls. And it's never been about protecting girl athletes. It's been about assaulting and harming and shaming trans youth. I don't disagree with that. There is, however, a legitimate problem that we have to talk about, particularly as more and more space is created for trans identities and for trans youth to identify as trans in middle school, in high school, in college. What do you do when the trans woman or the trans girl is able to dominate the entire field in sports? What do you do with that? Is that fair? How is that fair? I don't see that as fair. Again, I don't have a solution, but I need some answers. I have a critique. I have a thought. Rosability said, I would love for you to have a trans person or two on a live to talk about it. That's my goal. My goal is, particularly in light of this bill, now that there's a news page to talk about it, I would love to have folk on who can educate me on this and explain to me how this makes sense, because I am struggling with it.